Welcome. This is the Enlightenment Show, and I'm your host, Lauri Schoenfeld. This is where Chicken Soup for the Soul meets the artist way with Nancy Drew. Our guest today is Donna Scuvotti, author of Just Jonathan. We're going to be chatting with her today all about her book and what adventures she's taken in the woods that may or may not have given her nightmares. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you, Lauri.
So excited to have you joining us today.
Thank you.
It is September, and it is just a seasonal change. What is your favorite part of this time of year?
Oh, definitely fall. 100%. I mean, there's nothing that holds a candle to fall. I'm not a summer person. I hate heat. And in California this year, we had a record heat wave. And I live in the Bay Area, so it's generally not super, super hot here. I mean, it'll get in the 90s sometimes in the summer. But, I mean, we have 5 days of over 100. And, I mean, it's bad because I have 3 big dogs. So being a night owl, I don't go to bed early. But it got so hot so early that I had to get up early. And I didn't get any sleep all week long because I can't adjust my schedule. So I'm having to get up at 6:30 to take them to the park. They missed a couple of days, I'm not going to lie, because I just couldn't hang. But I tried.
You're sleeping in, guys. Mama's got to have some rest.
Oh, they're conditioned. They get up early, but they know better than to bug me. Mm-hmm. You know, I sometimes I can hear them playing around on the ground, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go back to sleep.
Your book, Just Jonathan, fantastically well written, a lot of emotion talking about the human condition, and you somehow wove this beautiful masterpiece into a thriller, which is a very beautiful and hard thing to do. Can you share with our listeners and viewers what Just Jonathan is all about?
Like a blurb kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically it starts out with Jonathan in the forest, and he's struggling with coming to terms with the death of his mother a year prior to that. He was in the car with her. She was killed by a drunk driver. He witnessed her death, and he's just struggling. He really has nobody to talk to. His dad has turned abusive and an alcoholic, abusive father. Because he can't cope either. This is his one true love, and he just doesn't know what to do. So he's basically is not being a father to Jonathan. And so Jonathan has nightmares. He goes into the forest a lot by his house. He lives in the Pacific Northwest in a fictitious town called Mount Sierra. And that's a nod to my lab, whose name is Sierra, because all my dogs are in the book. But anyway, so he goes into the forest, and he hears a blood-curdling scream. That just kind of like, that's how the book opens up. It stops him in his tracks, and he's just like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I investigate? Do I run back home, climb under the covers? You know, I'm at a crossroads here. So he gives into his adventure spirit and just goes for it, and just trudges in through the forest, and it's dark, and it's cold, and it's wet, and it's smelly, and it's all kinds of things in one, you know, and he's scared to death. But then he stumbles as he smells like a campfire, and as he smells a campfire, he moves closer to the campfire smell, and that's when he sees a man hovering over a severed leg, and then they lock eyes, and Jonathan's like, oh crap, you know, and that's where the story unfolds. He actually gets away, he runs away, but he knows when he gets home that he can't let it go. He's going to have to investigate. And he goes back into the forest. He ends up finding evidence of misdeeds. You know, he knows something bad's going on, right? And then he starts Googling stuff. Thank God for the internet, right? And he starts Googling stuff, and he finds out, you know, that there have been some murders, and there have been murders for the past 5 years, and they've been unsolved, and they're open cases. So that even makes him want to investigate more, because he wants to see justice where justice is due, you know, for the families as well as the people that died. So, and then along the way, he meets somebody who becomes a father figure to him that is his saving grace, basically. And that's where a lot of the human condition comes in. I mean, you feel for Jonathan. I've had so many of my readers say they just want to reach through the pages and give him a hug. Mm-hmm. You know, because as anybody, as a mother, or even just as a human with a heart, you're going to feel for him. You're going to want to just protect him, and you can't, you know, but he, you know, I was all about, when I wrote this, I knew I wanted to do a murder mystery, and I actually didn't know what I was going to write to start with, but I knew it would be a murder mystery because it's what I like to read. And I knew that along the way, as I'm sitting down, because I'm a pantser, as I'm sitting down, serial killer, I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'll put that one in there. And things just evolved. And then it became a story. And like I said, I put a lot of myself into a book. So Jonathan has a lot of my traits and a lot of my personality. I'm not the most adventurous person in the world, but I was when I was younger. Now that I'm old, I'm just like, you know, things change, right? Mm-hmm. But I wanted a lot of the human condition in there because I wanted people to feel what he was feeling. And I wanted him to have redemption. I wanted him to, you know, I wanted him to have bumps along the road because that makes him human. But in the same token, I wanted him to be able to not suffer the whole time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Yeah. Julia Slack came to say hi. Hi, Julia. Thank you so much for being here. Your writing journey is quite interesting and unique because you have a law background, but you also wrote this amazing book and you're doing a lot of the investigation. So I'm curious, how much of your law background came into that investigating and writing different parts within this story?
Actually, the only part that I would say my law background came into was the end, when there's the courtroom scenes. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, I know a little bit of ins and outs about that. But the rest of it, no, nothing at all. I think my writing style maybe was developed when I was going to school, because as going to paralegal school and law school, you have to write a lot. So, I mean, I did develop a particular writing style, you know, like it's certain things, the way they're said. And I would say in one way, and my professors would go, no, it's more impactful if you, you know, move the words around. And because of that, I write the way I write now. So I guess a little bit in that respect, but mostly just the courtroom drama at the end.
Mm-hmm. What happened with your writing journey? Can you walk us through that a little bit, of when you did go to law and how you transitioned into writing, what that looks like for you?
Well, I retired. I retired from everything. Actually, most of my working throughout the years was managing multi-million-dollar stores and going in and cleaning them up and fixing them. I did get a law background, and I have a law background, and that's where my heart will always lie. I mean, I love anything law related, and I gravitate towards it immediately. But I didn't practice. I didn't finish, you know, getting my to become a lawyer, because I like I told you, it was taking too much time away from my family, which I was not willing to compromise that. You know, they were my number one, and they always will be my number one. Now that they're grown. I mean, my son is 44, my daughter is 40, you know, so I don't have young children anymore, but they're still my children, right? So I retired. I kind of always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to write a book, but I never intended Jonathan to be a book. And I've told this before on different lives. I just had the very first sentence of Jonathan in my mind for years. And one day during lockdown, I sat down. I'm like, I'm going to write this down. I wrote it down. And then all these ideas came to my mind that I didn't even know I had. You know, they just like filtered in. And I just started writing them down. A good friend of mine, I saw on Facebook that she posted that she'd been really, really sick. And I mean, she's a really good friend of mine. So I was like taken aback why I didn't know about this, right? So I texted her. I'm like, what the heck's going on? Why am I finding about, that you're on death's door through Facebook? And so she and I connected again, and she's like, what have you been up to? And I'm like, I've just been fiddling around with this. And so she begged me. She said, send it to me. She became one of my beta readers, and I sent her what I had, and she's like, oh my God, I love it. I love Jonathan. I love it. So can you send me everything you write for the day? And I'm going to read it before I go to bed at night. And that's what I did. And I didn't want to let her down, because it seriously, in her eyes, I don't know about, this is what she told me, it was giving her something to look forward to. Mm-hmm. And it was helping her in a weird way. That's what she said. It really helped her get through her problems. So during the day, I would sit down and I would write feverishly, because I wanted to have enough content to give her at the end of the day, right? So I did. And then I had a book, and there it was. And I'm like, what happened here? 65,000. Well, actually it ended up at about 50,000 something pages. And I had my daughter read it as well. And she's like, I feel like, it's kind of, there could be more to the end. So I went back and revisited it. And I did add the courtroom drama scene. I added a couple of things, like Jonathan finds things in the forest. One big thing he finds in the forest was always in there. And I know you know what I'm talking about. But he finds a couple other things along the way. And I added those. I added the very ending, which is a big deal, right? So it ended up about 65,000 words. Mm-hmm. And my new one's even bigger than that. But anyway.
Julia has a great question tied to what you just said, Donna. She says, did you always want to self-publish? Great question, Julia.
Well, if I had my druthers, I would traditionally publish. But I never even considered it. I didn't query for this, because to tell you the honest God truth, I didn't even know what I had. I didn't know if anybody would even read it. I didn't know if anybody would even like it. I didn't even know if it was just a bunch of gibberish and I was talking circles around something, and it wasn't making sense until I got it back from the editor. And he, said, this is a gem of a well-written book, and you're an outstanding writer. That's when I had to revisit and go, well, maybe I'm onto something here, And, but I still didn't query, because I had heard horror stories about it, to tell you the truth, and then I kind of stumbled upon the writing community, and so many people in the writing community are self-published. So I just automatically went that route and hired a company to get my manuscript into book form, because I have technical issues. And I'm the first one to admit I have technical issues. And I knew I couldn't do it. And I guess it would have taken so much time just to get somebody to do a cover, and somebody to proofread it, and somebody to format it, all of those things along the way. So I hired a company that does it all for me. I give them my manuscript, they give it to the editor gives an evaluation, and we go from there. Mm-hmm. And right now my new one is in its final formatting stage. Final. It's already been proofread. So it's just the corrections are being made. And at that time, then I'll get it in the cover, which I thought I was going to have ahead of time. I told you the cover will be released to me. Right now it has watermarks on it, so I don't want to,
Mm-hmm. So. A team is really needed. I'm right there with you. The technical side, I'm like, I need a team for that stuff. It's really important to have your backbones to help you with the things that you're not sure on how to do, for sure. Yep. Barbara says, hello, Donna.
Hey, Barbara.
Welcome, Barbara. So just Jonathan, we were talking a little bit before the show that one of my favorite things, Donna, is that you evoke so much emotion and feeling with how Jonathan sees and feels about his mother specifically. The first few chapters I had to put down because I was just in tears as you pulled at all these heartstrings. What inspired you to create this relationship that really was a big part of what Jonathan held within the story?
I have a very, very close relationship with my mother, and I always have. I was just last weekend, I went to visit her. She's almost 90. And I might get a tear over this because she's not doing well. I mean, she lives alone. She shouldn't, but she won't move because she says she sees my dad in the house, and he passed 5 years ago last Sunday. And that's hence why I went down to see what I didn't want her to be alone on his passing anniversary. And I have a really big heart. And like I said, so much of what I put in Jonathan is who I am. So his relationship with his mother is how I would feel if it were me, if my mom had been killed by a drunk driver. That's how I would have felt. And even though he's a 13-year-old boy, and that was challenging in itself, because obviously I'm far from a 13-year-old boy. So it was a challenge to write in his perspective as that. And especially because he uses the word tummy a lot. And I did a Kirkus review, and they didn't get the whole gist of Jonathan being 13 years old. Because they're like that I use the word tummy too much. And I'm like, this is a 13-year-old boy talking. If he was going to say tummy here and there, because obviously that wasn't their word of choice for a stomach. But anyway, I got off on a tangent. So anyway, I think that because that's who I am as a person, I put myself in his shoes on how he would feel, because that's how I would be feeling as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I felt a lot of those emotions, like the loss and the grief that you have in there, are very relatable to the human condition as well, as everyone's lost someone that they've cared about, or wanted to connect with someone that they feel is so far away in some form or another. You write about animals, your animals, within your book, and you're a dog lover. Tell us about that.
Okay, well, that was another thing that kind of just happened. Jonathan meets, and this isn't giving anything away, Jonathan meets somebody by the name of Luke. And Luke is, oh my God, Jonathan says he has a heart of gold, and he does have a heart of gold. And there was a part in the book where I almost killed Luke off, and I think you probably know the part where I almost killed Luke off. And I sat there and I cried and I cried and I cried, and I'm like, why am I crying? And I'm like, I can't kill him. I can't kill him for me. I can't kill him. I can't kill him for Jonathan, because Jonathan needs him. I mean, Jonathan really, I don't know how he would have dealt with Luke's death on top of his mother's. But anyway, so I gave Luke, as I developed his character and he became a Gulf War veteran with PTSD, I gave him a therapy dog. And because the two go hand in hand, right? Mm-hmm. So giving him a therapy dog, usually therapy dogs lots of times are golden retrievers. So I'm like, I've got a golden retriever sitting right next to me. So let's just make her name Sydney, because that's my dog's name. So, and then when I had named Mount Sierra after my lab, I'm like, okay, well, I've got to put all my animals in here now. I can't just do two, right? So I had, you'll hear Reggie. Reggie comes in a dream that Jonathan has about one of the victims and her husband. And Reggie was a Weimaraner that I had that passed. Mm-hmm. So he got in there, and then we rescued another Weimaraner at the time when I had already finished my manuscript. And most of the dogs, I mean, like Sierra doesn't come in dog form. So I'm like, okay, I've got to get Jack in there somehow. Jack is my new Mr. Crazy Pants Weimaraner. And so I changed the name to the defense attorney. So his name is Jack Rigsby. And I already had Rigsby in there because that was under Cody Rigsby, the Peloton guy. So I just changed it to Jack so I could get Jack in there. Buffy is a cat that Luke owns. That is kind of not a super important part, but she talk about it a lot. And I have a cat named Buffy. I think I talk about Jonathan rescues a dog named Canella and names it Canella, and that's a dog down the street. A golden retriever down the street. Jonathan gets a cat named and names it Willow. That's a cat that I have that died. So every animal reference is one of mine or one that I know. It's just important to me. Animals are a big part of my life. And since they're a big part of my life and I live and breathe these dogs I have now, that why wouldn't it be part of my book? Plus, I think, I didn't think of this at the time, but I think it adds a human element to it. You know, it's like, and especially the therapy dog with Luke. You know, he has another therapy dog in this book. Oh, and Luke's past therapy dog was named Callie, and that was a dog of mine too. So every single one.
I love how you brought in the therapy dog, because that is also very relatable as well with, you know, veterans and PTSD, of being that soothing element to help you get through the day-to-day noise and things that they're personally going through every single day that's unseen.
Yeah.
Julia, we have some people here that have questions. Donna, Julia says, have you got any ideas for a third book?
Well, I had, when I turned Jonathan in, I never intended to write a sequel. And hence, I made the Jonathan in 2019. If I had thought that I was going to write a sequel, I would have made Jonathan in like 2002 or something. So now I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to write a sequel because I read all these things that if somebody, as a new author especially, they don't want to invest in you if they know they're not going to get something else out of you. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll write a sequel. So it's 20 years later. Now it's the year 2039. And I'm like, oh, crap. It changed to year of Jonathan, right? So I just have to roll with this year of 2039. And that was challenging all in its own right, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And that was one of the things that my editor said to me. He's like, I feel like this book is written in a bubble, because you don't talk about 2039. You don't talk about modern technology. And I'm like, well, there doesn't really come a place where I would need to talk to it. And I did that for a reason, because I didn't know what I would say. But I threw him a bone and I added stuff. So there's going to be some stuff in 2039 to look forward to. Let me tell you. You know, you can get to England in 2 hours. I mean, like a billboard. I did like a magazine Jonathan picks up that he reads an article about, and then he sees something on TV. And so I got that in there. So it's not a bubble, like the editor said. And so third book, I'm not going to do another Jonathan. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do another Jonathan. I pretty much wrapped, I mean, Jonathan now he's only 33. So, I mean, he meets his soulmate in Deadly Vendetta. And I have a friend who, specifically Helen, who, you know, everybody knows Helen. She said, you should do like a book about Jonathan, like about Luke's history, his backstory.
Ooh.
And it's possible because he does have a colorful backstory. So, but I don't know. I've been toying with a couple of things. After I wrote Jonathan, at the back of Jonathan has the first chapter of Deadly Vendetta. So I already had an idea of what I was doing there. This Deadly Vendetta does not have a chapter of anything, because I got nothing in the brain right now. It's nothing. I mean, it's nothing. And as I'm driving down south to Mom's, it's like 4-hour drive, I'm like, this is going to be wonderful. All these ideas are going to pop in my head. No.
You're like, too much downloading like a month beforehand.
It will come when it comes. You know, I have written, and I thought I would, the story that I started writing was about Quinn, who Quinn is the love interest of Jonathan. So I might expand on that. I don't know. Or I might just let Jonathan just go live his life and let him do his thing. And don't bug him anymore. He hasn't been bugging me lately, so maybe he wants to be left alone.
Helen is here, Donna. Hi, Helen. She says, I'm late to the party, but would love to know how Donna gets her ideas for her novel. Which writers have inspired her? Great questions.
I don't really know if I write like anybody in particular. think I have a little bit of a human condition like Jodi Picoult, which I love her writing. And Helen has told me that she thinks I write like Mitch, what is it, album? And she can see some of that in my writing. My favorite author of all time is Michael Connelly. I love Michael Connelly. I mean, anything he writes, I devour it, because he just has the most perfect way of intertwining his characters with the story, and it just keeps you, at the edge of your seat and wanting more. And I mean, that's what all we strive for as a writer, right?
Yeah.
So I don't take my ideas from anywhere but my head. I mean, I don't know if anybody has totally 100% influenced me. I guess inadvertently, because I do read a lot. So I think probably sometimes your writing style will start mimicking other people from that reason alone. But I don't know specifically who I would pinpoint it on or to.
I love your descriptions, though, because I definitely see some of the authors, like how you have a relatability there with writing style, but you've got your own for sure. Like, your voice is very organically yours, which is, I love. So,
my editor says it's a friendly voice. He says you have a very friendly writing voice. It's warm and it's inviting, and it connects people into the human condition. And another thing, because of that human condition in Just Jonathan, one of my reviewers, and you'll see this a lot on my post, she dubbed it as a chiller with heart. And it couldn't have been a better description, because that is totally what it is. And I don't want people to not read my book because they think it's like some serial killer, some gruesome, stabbing and blood and killing, because that's not it. I knew when I wrote it, I did not want active killing in it. That was something that was not debate. I was not open to debate on that. Nobody tried to, but if somebody had said, oh, you need to, and I'm like, I would have said no way. And so that's where I draw the line with my writing. Even though that he's done these things, and he finds things in the forest that it's obvious that he's a horrible person, the serial killer, but you never see him kill. And another thing I won't put in my books is animal abuse. And I will not read a book that has animal abuse. I draw the line. I read one recently, and I'm not even going to say who it is. It wrecked me for a month. I swear. Ask Helen. I just oh my God, I just finished reading this book. I can't. It was horrible. Animal abuse. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, what makes that okay? But anyway, not who I am.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned that it is a thriller that's a heartfelt thriller, because you've had a few recommendations of that. And that's a fantastic description, because that's how it felt when I read the story, for sure.
Yeah.
What did you hope when you were writing the story that came across for the heartfelt piece, but also adding that thriller essence that you wanted with the suspense?
What's the question again? What was I?
When you were writing your novel, what did you hope would be that blend between the thriller, but then bringing in that heartfelt, warm essence that you wanted to create?
I know this is going to sound corny and cheesy, but I never really gave it a lot of thought. I mean, I seriously didn't. When I wrote the book, I wrote it in like 4 months tops. It may not have even taken me that long. And it flowed so easily out of my head that it was almost scary, because I would write, and as I write, I always read ahead of time what I have written, so I immersed in what's going on. You hear people say, oh, you just need to get the words down. It's going to be crap. The first draft's going to be crap, but you can always go back and you can always change it. That's not how I write. I don't want to have to go back and change it. I want it to make sense at the time. And there's nothing wrong with the way other people write. Everybody has their thing, That's just not my thing. And so when I created Jonathan, I knew, because of him suffering from his mother's death, I knew he was going to have a big heart, and he was going to have to be hurting, because this was how the story started out. So if I didn't develop that through the book, it would have been a huge void. You know, I would have started out with it and then it would have dropped off. And then I think people would have said, hey, what happened? You know, I need to know more about how's he dealing with this? How's he coping with this? And what is happening in his life to help him along. So because of this very beginning, I knew I had to give him somebody that was going to help him along the way, because Michael, his dad, was clearly not the person. So I had to incorporate somebody into the book that would be his other dad, his saving grace, his, you know, his helper. I mean, without that person in the book, Jonathan wouldn't be who he is. Jonathan wouldn't have been able to function, basically. He was, you know, he was basically at his wit's end when he went into the forest that day. Night.
We all have at one point in our lives someone that's that saving grace type of an inspirational person outside of our family. Did you have someone that you looked up to that supported you in some area in your life?
Outside of the family, no. Nope. I don't necessarily have anybody like that. You said outside the family. If you hadn't said that, I would have said my dad. I haven't had the hugest support from my family through this. I mean, and not because I don't think it's intentional. It's like my son hates to read, so therefore he has not read the book still. My husband's like at the courtroom drama part, and he's not even finishing it. And I'm like, really? I mean, you're almost done. And he hates to read too. And he said, well, I don't like courtroom stuff. And I'm like, that is such a small part of the book. Like, you've already gotten through the whole book, right? Just finish it up. But I don't have anybody on the outside that I would say no.
Well, Donna, I want to tell you that I love and really appreciate how you brought in the relationship with the mother, specifically because I have never had a good relationship with my mom. And so coming from my perspective, that was really cool to get that beautiful essence of what that would feel like and have that.
That part of Jonathan is me, because I do have that relationship with my mother. Yeah. And I've always had, I mean, she was a stay-home mom. She's always been there for me every step of the way. And that's why I'm struggling with her being 90 years old and not doing well. And because I don't know what's going to happen to me. I mean, I don't want to talk about it.
We will turn it to Helen, because Helen has a great question of what 3 tips would you give to a new writer? Great question, Helen.
3 tips to a new writer. Number 1, follow your heart. Don't let anybody tell you you're not good enough. And that's my dedication to Deadly Vendetta. You know, it's not to anybody in particular this time. It is to people that don't think they're good enough. Follow your heart, because there's going to be somebody out there that's going to want to read your book. And if there's not, guess what? You wrote it for yourself. It's something, you know, you have to think, ultimately, you have to make yourself happy. And if you have a book in there and it wants to come out, then put it down. Put it out there. You'll feel better about it. And I would say don't get frustrated, because it's kind of, everybody suffers from imposter syndrome as a author. I mean, I don't know one person that hasn't suffered from imposter syndrome. And so that can be all consuming if you let it. So you have to just rise above that sometimes. And we're all going to have those times where we're just like, oh crap, I hate myself. I hate this. I hate that, you know, and I'm crap. And I don't want to, you know, not that you get suicidal, but you start doubting yourself, and you start doubting the writing process, and you start doubting all kinds of things in your life. And then I would also say, don't compare yourself to others, because comparing yourself to others will take you down a rabbit hole you're not going to find your way out, because everybody is unique. Everybody has their own story to tell. Everybody has something that's happened in their life that is totally theirs. You know, so those stories and who you are is going to develop through that. So don't, just because somebody else is succeeding and you're not, or the case, or whatever the case may be, don't let that deter you from, carrying on. Keep going.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant advice. Yes, absolutely brilliant advice. Julia asks, top books you've read this year. Oh, I know, Donna. I'm interested to see what those are.
Well, I read Helen's book, The Dinner Club, which is fan-freaking-tastic. It's not what I write. And I loved the aspect, the human aspect of it, where it drew you in, and I felt like I knew these people like they were my best friends, and I wanted to sit across the table and have dinner with them, and that is a huge kudos for her as a writer, because that's what you want. You want those people to feel connected to your characters. So that I read a huge amount of indie authors. I'm reading your book right now, actually, Little Owl. I am, and I wanted to finish it before our thing, because I'm like, I want to be able to talk about it, but I've been a slacker.
Thank you, Donna. I appreciate you.
And I just wrote Coloring Life by Vicki Alexander. That was really good. I read my friend Liz Krause. She has a memoir, which memoirs are not my thing. I'm not going to lie. They're not my thing. But hers was good. 3 sisters, 3 countries, 3 weeks. And hers was very good. She wove a lot of history and descriptions of a lot of places, the 3 countries she went. So I enjoyed that. Like I said, almost all indies. I did read, and I said I wasn't going to mention the title, but I'm going to. It was called The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. That's the one that wrecked me.
Yeah.
Wrecked me. I mean, I was like, I just can't. I mean, it was haunting me. So I did not give it a good review, but I explained why. So, I mean, I gave it a 3 because I have to respect that she wrote a book.
Mm-hmm.
That above all, I have to respect that. But I've had animal abuse. So anyway, and I read The Taste Beneath, Daniel Monroe, who is part of our indie community. And he's writing a sequel called Disease Intentions, and which I know is going to be phenomenal because his first book was good. I also read another one by it's called Embracing What Remains, Andrea Couture. I've got a list a mile long. And God's Country by Luke Eckley. I mean, his was great. And I read E.J. Yerzek's, which is Access Point. These are all indie authors from our community. I mean, I could go on and on. Is that enough, Julia?
I love that question, Julia, because I knew with Donna and I, like, we both are avid readers of indie and traditional books. So that was a good list.
And I know that I forgot some. I mean, I know I've forgotten lots because I've read a crap load. And then Harry, do you know who Harry writes fiction? Harriet Pierce. Oh, you need to connect with her. She's a gem. She is a gem. She lives in New Zealand, and she just released a book. I'm actually going to proofread one of her books for her, and I've done beta reading and ARC reading for her a lot. So she has a lot of books out there, and talk about a unique writing style. Lauri, you would like her.
Harriet Pierce, is that what you said, Donna?
Harriet Pierce. Her books are H. Pierce. P-E-A-R-C-E.
Julia has to mention in here The Dinner Club. Yes, Julia.
That I was talking about. Yes, it's great. And Julia is going to be releasing a book soon too.
Yay, Julia! Woohoo! I love it. We're turning to the next question, Donna, that we started at the very beginning of our conversation of what adventures have you taken in the woods that may or may not have given you nightmares?
I'm not a very adventurous spirit. I mean, like I said, the older you get, the less adventure you want in your life. Because when you're young, I mean, you're clueless, right? you think nothing will ever happen to you. You're invincible. You just go balls out and you just do whatever you want to do, right? That's the kind of child I was. And actually, my son's not that kind of child. My daughter is. But that's the kind of child I was. As an adult, I'm like, do I really want to do that? I mean, my husband's like, we're going to go to the beach. He's like, let's go ride some bikes. I'm like, I'm going to fall off and break something. You know, it's like, you think about those things when you get older. I mean, I don't like it, but it's reality. So I don't remember anything in the forest. I didn't even go when I was a child. I don't even think I ever went into a forest. I lived in the Central Valley of California. So in the Central Valley of California, you don't have a forest, you don't have a beach, you're in the Central Valley. I mean, you can get to them, but everything's going to take you, 2 to 3 hours to get to. So I didn't have that opportunity as a child. And as an adult, I will go up to Lake Tahoe, which is to die for. Mm-hmm. It's the best of both worlds because you have a big, humongous lake. So therefore you have a beach and you have the mountains all in one. So I don't have anything to base it on. I mean, I'm not kidding you when I say that my book was written out of this little noggin, because it was 100%. It wasn't. I mean,
super amazed, Donna, honestly, because I was envisioning as I was reading your book, like one of the things that I saw, because your descriptions are so vivid with the forest and your details are so beautiful, that I was envisioning that you were like Indian styling in the woods, like writing your novel with all these sensory details, because you did such an amazing job of evoking all of those pieces. So
thank you.
No Indian style sitting in the woods.
All out of mind.
Dang it. I'm still going to keep the vision of you Indian styling in the woods, so because that's totally how it felt.
Well, I did a good job then, right?
Yeah, you did an amazing job. Yes. We're going to turn to the inner child question segment. Are you ready, Donna?
Yeah.
I loved that little facial you just gave. Okay, first question. What were some of your favorite times spent with your family when you were a kid?
Well, I have a crazy sister, so it's not going to involve her. I can guarantee that. She's a wackadoodle. I have 2 sisters, one I'm very close to and one who's just trying to alienate the whole family right now. But so I guess it was, my dad worked a lot. And when I was little, he just always wanted to better his life. So when I was young, he went back to school to get his master's, which he did. And so he didn't have a lot of family time. So I guess I would say the times that we got to take vacations and we'd go on road trips. And I love a good road trip. I mean, give me a good road trip with some peanut butter, huh, Helen? She and I share our passion for peanut butter. And so we went, I remember a road trip in particular, we went to Las Vegas, which I don't even remember how far that is. I want to say it's like it's a jaunt from Bakersfield, where I was raised. And it was great because I connect with the dynamic as my family, instead of, having to deal with the everyday struggles that you go through when you're at home with school and everything else, right? So we did that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that same road trip took us into the Grand Canyon and Zion National Park. And we just hit all of those states and all of those landmarks. And it stood out in my mind. And I still can tell you exactly what I wore on some of those days. And I was probably like 7 years old. So that's how I equate something important in my life. If I can remember what I was wearing. I know that's stupid, but I do. So, I mean, I guess I would have to say the vacations, because they were few and far between for us. Not as I got married and I had my children, we would always go on vacations with our children. But we were also a little bit more able to do that financially.
Yeah. Now, are we talking, Donna, on peanut butter? Are you taking the whole thing of peanut butter with you in a spoon kind of experience?
Oh, I've been known to do that.
Yes.
It's my favorite. But I mean, anything with peanut butter, I'll take. I won't throw out.
Mm-hmm. I used to eat peanut butter all the time. And then after my third child, my hormones went wacko on that one. And I was allergic to peanut butter after him.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was my favorite thing.
No, that would no. You know, I all of a sudden I developed an allergy to tomatoes out of nowhere, like last year. And now looking at one, I mean, I can't even stand to look at them because I know what's going to do to me. I chopped one up last night. It was like I practically boiled my hands afterwards because I'm like, I don't want any left on my hands, any residue would seep into my skin, kill me off. Yeah, it's weird how your body changes.
Done. Yeah. Julia, I like that you're asking this question, girl. Smooth or crunchy peanut butter? Donna.
Well, I'm not real picky with my peanut butter. You know, I used to eat crunchy a lot, but I'm more of a smooth girl now. Yeah, probably because that's all we can mostly have in the house because my husband has diverticulitis and he can't have peanuts. So now I've become smooth. I'm a smooth girl. Out of default. But
you become smooth.
I'm smooth.
You are smooth, Donna. Helen asked, did you always want to be a writer, and what was your journey into writing? Great question.
No, I did not always. I always kind of in the back of my mind wanted to write a book because I love to read books, and I always thought, you know, I could see myself as the author and seeing how wonderful it would be to develop characters and develop a story and making it where somebody would want to read it and connect with it. So that was always something that was always in the back of my mind, but never really thought that I would achieve that goal because I never really put my mind to it. You know, when you're going to school, when you're working and you're raising a family and all those things in one, you really don't have a lot of extra time to devote to your dreams and your passions. And so I kind of just didn't think about it and continued reading and reading and reading. And when I had that one idea or that one sentence in my head that I was telling you about, and when I sat down during quarantine, because that's all we could do, we were on lockdown, you know, so we really can't do anything. And I wrote it down. That's when the floodgates opened up. That's when my imagination took hold. And at that particular time, it was a surprise to me. It really and truly was. It was just like, where are all these ideas coming from? And why did you decide to put a serial killer in your book, Donna? And why did you decide to do this? And I'm like, oh my God, is there something wrong with me? Why am I warped? So, you know, to make myself not be so warped, that's why I had to add some human condition. So like, I'm really not that crazy of a person. And I had to do a lot of research for that serial killer, let me tell you, because even though so much of my personal way I feel and how I think is in the book, that was not part of it. I had never been in, and I don't read true crime because I really don't want to know that much about them. They're just a weird, and I had something crazy happen when I was younger. It's when Charles Manson, this is going to age me, but I don't care. I'm old. I know it. Charles Manson had done the Sharon Tate murder, and we had to go down and visit my great aunt and living really close to where this had happened. And I was freaking traumatized. And I thought for sure I was going to get killed in the middle of the night, that he was going to, you know, come because as a child, you can't connect space and time. Okay, he could have probably been 50 miles away, but in my eyes, he was living next door, you know, so he was going to come kill me. So that turned me off of true crime. I'm like, nope. But Jonathan, I knew to make the story what it was, I had to have a serial killer in there. So I got off on a tangent again. I'm really good at that, by the way. And what can I say? So I never really, I can't even remember the rest of your question, Helen. Something about writing, and what was the rest of the question?
That was perfect.
Okay, good.
What, Donna, is the oddest food combo that you've liked and tried, or you've just tried?
Oddest food combo. I'm not super experimental in my food. I like a lot of foods. I'm not picky. I'm not a picky eater, but I don't do weird stuff. So what some people might think is weird, I like to put cinnamon on my peanut butter.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it all the time, but, and instead of putting jelly, because I'm trying to be healthy, you notice I said trying, but I really am giving it the old college try, right? And so I put fresh blueberries on my peanut butter sandwich. So, yeah, right? It works like a gem. So
That sounds delightful.
Put some cinnamon on there, and it's a winner. And that's not really totally odd, but for me, that's about as adventurous as I get with my food.
We'll say that's odd because I've never tried that. That sounds delightful, though.
Yeah, give it a try. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. You got to hold it together really good, though, because those little blueberries want to slip on out. So
get the bite right in the middle of the blueberry. Keep it centered. Anyone who wants to try that with me, I will try that, and then we'll post. That sounds really delicious, though. I can see the combos working very well.
Right? So, and if I really want to go the health route, I'll put it on with some wheat bread. But that doesn't happen often.
Before we end today, Donna, what advice can you give our listeners and viewers on living a creatively abundant life?
Advice on creative abundant life. I guess just be true to who you are. I mean, I live a clean life as far as, like I'm not like, I'm very law abiding. I've never been, and my dad, that comes from years. I may have been this by myself, but I think it's an influence from my father, because he was, when I was little, he was a deputy sheriff. Then he became a parole officer. And then from there, he got his master's in criminal justice. And so he set up a program at our college where we moved to, and set up a whole correctional administration program and taught correctional and juvenile delinquency and all that kind of stuff. So it was drilled into my head as a young child not to break the law. I mean, I think I would have to even think twice before I would trespass. Seriously, I never wanted to disappoint my father, so I always towed the line. And I think that has made me into the person I am today. I'm a very honest person. I am kind of what you see is what you get. I don't have a hidden agenda. I don't live my life with a hidden agenda. And another thing I don't do is I don't lie, because lying will always come back to bite you in the ass. Every single time, because you don't know where you lied. And then you can't. So, I mean, and I write the way I feel and how I think. And I think if you're true to yourself, and your life's going to be good.
Mm-hmm. Lying will always bite you in the ass. Yes. Yes, it will.
Big ass, so let me tell you.
It's been such a delight to be able to chat with you today, Donna. Where can people find you if they have any questions about just Jonathan or your new release that is coming out soon?
That is coming out soon. Deadly Vendetta. Like I said, it's at the last stages. It's going to be, I was hoping for a release date of the end of October, but I might have to push it back a tad. So I'm on Instagram, Donna Scuvotti Author. I have my own website, which is Donna Scuvotti Author as well. I have obviously on Facebook. It's just everything's through my name. So I am on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter. I think that's just, I don't even know what my Twitter handle is because I don't go on it very often. I'm most active on Instagram. So if anybody, or you can sign up for my newsletter, which I haven't really done much with, but I'm hoping to do that soon. And if you go on my website, there's a link to it to sign up for my newsletter. Or anybody can, friend me on on Instagram and ask me questions through a DM too. I mean, like I said, I'm an open book. I'll answer anything. And if I can help anybody with their writing journey, I'm more than able to. I mean, I want to help people. I helped Liz, that we talked about, who wrote the Three Sisters book. And I don't know how we connected, but somehow we did right from the get-go. I helped her a lot with her marketing at first, which was the kind of the blind leading the blind. But I did more than she did at the time, so I was able to help a little bit. So wherever I can help, I'm more than eager to.
Perfect. And we will have all the links down below. Allison, we can find you on Twitter. Yes, we can. Donna is fabulous. Just Jonathan is a fantastic book. Highly recommend her book. Go check it out if you're wanting that thriller, suspense, edge of your seat feeling with the heartfelt, string pulling love of forgiveness and love and connection. This is the book for you. Donna, it's been an absolute pleasure to see you today.
Thank you, Lauri.
You're so welcome. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. And as you're going about the week, remember to find the things that are working for you. You are the writer and creator of your own story. Make it a good one. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.